Alright, right now I'm going to tie up for you one of my favorite all-time flies. It's by far my favorite stonefly. What I've got is a size 6 Dairiki 135 right here with a tungsten bead. You can use gold, or this one's actually bronze. I put a little bit of lead on there to make sure the bead's secured. Start my thread, take my thread, wrap it back to where the hook starts to bend. At that point I'm going to take just a little bit of dubbing. It's a big fly. Sometimes if you're doing biot tails, it helps to put just a little tiny ball of dubbing to help splay out the tail. You'll see what I mean in a second. But it requires just the smallest amount of dubbing, hardly any at all. Peel off the excess there. Okay, at that point I'm going to take a couple of black goose biots. I'm going to turn them opposite directions of each other. Line them up. That way they face in opposite directions. Probably could line them up a little better. Okay, I'm going to measure them out to be about 1/3 of the length of the fly, or the hook I should say. At that point I'm going to make a couple of wraps above that little small ball of dubbing that I did. I'm going to wrap down over the biots towards the ball of dubbing. At that point you can go ahead and just secure these biots. I don't need to clip them off, that's just going to build the body of the fly a little. Okay, at this point we're going to tie in our ribbing material. We're just going to use a piece of 3X mono. Alright, for the abdomen of this fly it's going to be about just barely over half the fly, meaning from the back of the tail up to the start of the head of the bead, a little bit over half. So after I start my rib, then I'm going to take a little bit of material that's called net back foil. It's a Yansamon product, comes out of the Czech Republic, used for Czech nymphs and other flies. I've got it cut down to a specific size. What it is there is a pattern, and I've got half a pattern, a full pattern, and then another half. And what that's going to be is that's going to be the back of our fly. So I'm going to take my thread back towards the tail. I'm going to tie in this net back foil back to the biots. At that point I'm just going to make sure everything's nice and even. Next I'm going to take some dubbing. What I use right here is bronze peacock semi-sil dubbing. You can use normal peacock semi-sil. It doesn't have to be semi-sil. In fact, semi-sil is very stringy and it's not really the best stuff for this type of application. It works really good on leech patterns and other things. But I really like the colors. I like the sheen. I like the way it's been producing for me with this fly for the past few years. But it is a little hard to apply because it is so stringy. You can use a dubbing loop, or you can use wax on your line, or you can just really put it on really tight with your fingers and it'll stay. However, just as a warning, it is not the easiest dubbing material to work with. Okay, so for our abdomen here, I'm going to go just about halfway, maybe slightly over that. With this semi-sil I do have to apply dubbing multiple times. I try to keep it somewhat thin. I'm not going for a real bulky body at this point. We're going to take that backing material, the net back foil, and pull it up. Make a couple of wraps to secure it down with our black thread. If I didn't mention, I think I mentioned it, but I'm using UTC 140 black thread. Okay, after I secure that down to a half hitch, I'm going to go ahead and take this 3X mono. And on that net back foil, on the pattern, it's interesting. You're going to take this monofilament and you're going to follow that pattern and you're going to put one wrap over every segment. I haven't found a material that makes a better segmented looking body for stoneflies and mayflies. Okay, once I've got that wrapped around each segment, I'm going to go ahead and tie this mono off. Couple threads behind, couple threads in front to pinch it down. There's our abdomen. At that point we're going to tie in one set of legs. We're going to take 2 strands of black crystal flash, line them up, Tie them on the far side with 2 wraps. I want those to be about half of the abdomen length at that point. What I do is I also take a couple of wraps up the hook shank, and what that does, that secures that crystal flash, but it also allows me to bring it back to tie them on the other side, gives me more crystal flash to grab a hold of with my thread as I bring them back on the other side. Got 2 strands tied in on each side now. Clip off the excess. Now we're going to take some more natural looking materials so that it's not just a big flashy legs off from each side. What I'm going to use here is just dyed black turkey flats. I'm going to take 5 or 6 pieces of that. Line them up. I overlap them just slightly past the black crystal flash. Tie it in a couple of somewhat loosely wraps. Pull that up so it's just barely past that crystal flash. Okay, and one more set for the other side. These can be somewhat sparse. You got 2 pieces of flash and some feather materials. You don't need a lot going on for these legs. What I do is just hold it nice and even on this other side. 1, 2. I can position it how I need to, like that. If I'm worried about it, I can go ahead and make one more securing wrap, a little bit stiffer wrap before I trim it off. Okay, now we're going to move on to our wing case. We're going to use more of the Onsama net back foil, although this time I've got a half a pattern, full, and a half. It's twice as big as what I used for the abdomen. Okay, I'm going to lay that down just above those legs that we just tied in. Take my thread, get her started here. Bring it back to the legs. Okay, and at that point we're going to apply more dubbing for the thorax. More bronze peacock, or sometimes I'll at this point darken it up a little bit and use just the natural peacock semi-silk dubbing. Okay, and if it's a little loose and a little stringy, that's okay. We're going to give this a little bit more bulk than we did the abdomen. However, this semi-silk dubbing can get away from you, so you want to be cautious there. Okay, so we're going to do about half of the gap that was left from those legs to the bead. At that point we're going to take and we're going to fold this net back foil, and instead of pulling it forward and over the dubbing, we're going to bring it back just a little bit and let it fold over top of the fly, or top of the abdomen just slightly. We're going to take this thread and make a couple of wraps. 1, 2. Then I'm going to peel this dubbing, the net back foil back out of the way. Get a little more dubbing. Holding it out of the way, I'm going to apply some more dubbing here. Maybe one more. We're going to go all the way to behind the bead. You don't have to stuff a lot of dubbing behind the bead. We have another set of legs to tie on, as well as securing this net back foil that you'll see in a moment. So you don't want to crowd it too much, but we do want this to look somewhat full. And if you're curious, if you're on a rotary vise, or most vices nowadays, you can flip it upside down and check it out. Okay, we're going to take that net back foil here, and we're going to straighten it up first. Then we're going to do another fold over wing. It's going to overlap the other one. So about like that. Get it where you want it, pinch it down, make a couple of wraps. Now we've got 2 wings, and I'm going to cut off that excess that's going up behind that bead. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do another set of legs. Crystal flash first, and then it'll be followed by turkey flats dyed black. Can't tell you how many times this fly has saved the day. You can tie it with tungsten or the brass. If you tie it with tungsten, on a size 6, it's a 5/32 tungsten bead. That is quite the bomber, very heavy fly. Not a lot of places you need flies that heavy. However, when the circumstance does arise, it's good to have a fly that will get down deep for you. this fly has so much mass to it that if you're fishing normal streams, you can typically tie it with just a standard brass bead, put a few wraps of lead on there, and it's going to get down as deep as you'll probably ever need it to. The tungsten, oftentimes I find it getting down a little too deep on smaller streams. However, I do keep my box full of these for the instance that I come upon a big hole and I think there's going to be some trout feeding on stonefly nymphs. Okay, so let's go ahead and tie in the second set of turkey flats up top. A couple of wraps, position it just so that it's a little overlapping those crystal flash pieces ever so slightly. Okay, now signature piece of the fly, we're going to take some bighorn orange South Scud dubbing. Doesn't take much. We're going to apply it onto the thread, and we're going to give this a hot spot collar here. Just a little bit of orange dubbing. If you wanted to earlier, a few steps before, you could have switched threads to an orange thread. It would hide the thread a little more. I found that it doesn't matter, and I don't think it looks that bad. Tuck in just a little bit of black thread between the collar and the bead. Once that's tucked in tight, you can double or single whip finish it and glue it. Better not have this fly fall apart. So there it is. There's the standard Rowley stone. Been fishing it for years. It's a fantastic fly pattern. Found a lot of success. It also can be tied as a golden stone. The only difference, natural buyouts, natural brown for the tail. I use Mercer's Crystal Buggy golden stone dubbing for the body, and root beer flash instead of black for the legs, with just some pheasant tail fibers with a yellow rabbit tail collar for the golden stone. So there it is. Alright, good luck, enjoy.